Hi, Ryan. Here to offer you some feedback on your 5 characteristics of light. We'll go ahead and switch to the screen here. Share the screen, move us over here, and let's get started. So I have your posting pulled up here, and so we'll just start looking at it. We have direction. Very nice work in terms of using the shadows here. Oops, this one looks like you got some color in there. Maybe you forgot to switch over. Beautiful shadow work on this image here. That's quite nice. The composition's a little wonky. You don't quite have these things straight up and down. It gives you a little bit of a kind of a skewed sort of, disorientation look. However, this shadow is just lovely and how it kind of brings itself right on through. Excellent, excellent work there. Repetition seems like you're working with a lot of repetition here, and that is typical. This would have been the first sort of part of the project that you shot, and you're just getting to know the set. You're just getting to know what the expectations are. So the repetition is I expect to be repetition in there. Intensity, let's take a look at that. Now intensity, you're adding the light and you are varying. You still have your key light, which is establishing direction, and you're adding the fill light in order to bring up the shadows a little bit. Looks like we're having some repetition of these compositions. This shot here back up in direction, and then you got this shot down here in temperature. They seem identical. They're not, but they seem very close to one another, almost too close. Yeah, we got some repetition in composition here a little bit. Let's see if that continues. These two are very, very similar. Although you are nicely showing a variation. I mean, it does illustrate that, here this one's darker, and you add a fill light, in terms of intensity, modifying the intensity. But in a series like this, you want to avoid having compositions that are too close together like that. Temperature. Again, your use of repetition is just fine. However, the repetition amongst the compositions, you can see these two images are extremely close together. They don't really need, in the future, you're going to have these kinds of variations. That's fine. But in the future, when you're selecting which images to post, go ahead and choose compositions that are farther apart from one another so that each composition feels unique. Very good job in terms of your variation. I mean, this one's quite nice in terms of that. As you can see, you've got perfectly balanced, color balanced front of the bottles, and then this really quite exquisite warm light right behind it. It's exactly the kind of thing that you can do when you're working with a variation of color temperature in the image. That is exactly what we're looking for. Back on this one, which is your first one, this one just got away from you. It just is, overwhelmed by the color shift, and it just appears to be a little bit flat. It just seems off. If someone were to look at this and not know what the assignment was, it would just look a little strange. Contrast. Now, contrast has everything to do with the shades of gray. You have your light and you have your dark and what's in between. So let's take a look at those. Oh, I have another color image. You have to, take care with that. I mean, this is what we're talking about is the parameters of a project. We're talking about the specs of a project. And as working as a creative professional, there's no wiggle room on that. If you're given specifications for a particular project, you have to follow them to the letter. So this is just an exercise, but we still want you to practice the sort of use professional practices. And that would be take care to make sure that you're following the specifications very carefully, because that's something you just want to have just, intuitively, that I'm going, if it's asked to be in black and white, it's going to be black and white. Again, we do have some very similar compositions here where only the light is changing, and we want to vary that up as we're going. So nice, work here, working with the reflectors. I can tell we have a nice reflection going on here and here. This is quite an interesting image. It feels a little incomplete over here because we have this beautiful sort of, I guess, modeling that's going on with the shapes of the bottles. And it sort of, if it was continued over on here, let's see if I'm able to, no. If we were able to kind of stop the image right here, you'd have this really, quite interesting rhythmic flow going on with the composition. So this part of the image really is not participating in the rest of the composition. And now hardness, and this has to do with whether the shadows are sharp or whether they are soft. Let's take a look at what we have here. I know it's a challenge. You're working with these bottles, and after 100 or so images, what else am I going to do? Typically, what you wind up doing is keep getting closer and closer and closer, and then you cease to see the bottles as the bottle shape it at all. In some cases, in your compositions here, you're doing that very well. In other cases, I think you're sort of falling back onto the imagery, and they're reading more like a portrait of a bottle. This is quite nice work here. You've got a soft shadow here. You've got hard shadows here. That variation is what we're talking about when we're exploring the characteristics of hardness. When you have variety of hardness in an image like this, with the very soft shadow and then the very hard shadows, it creates that kind of contrast. That's exactly what we're looking for there. Overall, I would say you have a nice series here. We're missing a little bit in terms of variety of composition. Let's take a look at what your peers generally were saying. a lot of repetition in the photo. So yeah, they're agreeing with me there. Yep, a few of them appear that you're looking at the bottle more than the shadows, and these are all constructive, very good comments here. I think we're, from what they're reading and into your images is pretty accurate, pretty much the same as what I'm seeing here. Overall, I think you did a nice job here. I was happy to see how focused you were. You were generally, trying to learn these concepts, and that's good. And while some of the images are, a little bit off, I think in general it's a very nice series. So, all right. You will also get a numeric sort of evaluation, but I thought these videos would be helpful. All right.